The most likely thing to take your life is your own hand. People are not designed to be together forever. Your brain is very, very good at numbing you. My entire 20s was one big experiment. Steroids are very much like alcohol. Men today are more lost than ever.
All right, everybody, welcome back to Mental Health Over Everything. I have a special guest. I have David Kelly here. Now, I don't even know what to call David at this point because the guy is a man of many jobs. So what do we call you at this point, Dave?
So I like to refer to myself as a human primarily,
For sure,
but
for sure.
I do a couple different things, as Brandon just said. So I do primarily coach men in the lifestyle and competitor space for, fitness coaching, physique coaching. But I'm trying to what I'm trying to do with my company, Paragon Performance, is build men into better men. And I think that's what we're really here to talk a lot about is, how mental health impacts that and the way those things do. But I'm also working on turning pro in classic physique myself.
Yeah.
And I'm also a vocalist in the metal band Tethra.
I know, man. I saw that the other day and I was
Yeah.
like, wow.
Yeah.
I said, damn, I thought Rob Bailey was the only person that did that.
Yeah,
That was
man.
pretty cool,
Rob's
though.
cool. I've talked to him quite a bit throughout my life. He's somebody I've always looked up to a lot. There's very few people I feel like that have really done and really committed to both the fitness space and music. It's usually one or the other. And I've, my whole 20s and everything has been about trying to figure out how to blend that all together.
For sure.
And I've done that to the best of my ability, and I'm really proud of what I've done so far, but I got a lot more I want to do for sure. But, that's why I'm here, though, is to talk about experiences with that stuff. And
Yeah, I know. So I remember, this is months ago. You said, hey,
Yeah.
man,
Yeah.
let me know when you're free and I want to do this. And, mental health is very important to me. And I think it should be important to everybody within your niche and industry
Yeah.
because I think it's just put on the back burner so much and people normalize it when it shouldn't be normalized. This is a problem that
Yeah.
a lot of people face. And, it needs to be talked about more and people need to stop shunning it and just not wanting to listen to it. And again, I've helped a lot of people out with this channel so far. And this is the whole goal here is to talk with other people that know how important this is. So
Oh, yeah.
among being in the fitness industry, where does mental health really come into it with you?
I think it's something that predates fitness industry for me, right? I got into music for that whole reason, right? Making music. I've been making music since I was 17 years old. And I think to me, the best way, there's a lot of ways to connect with people, right? And try to
Sure.
help them and inspire people and make them feel better, help them heal, right? That's what you're doing with this podcast.
For sure.
That's been my aim since I was, like I said, 17 years old making music. It's my aim when I'm posting on Instagram. It's my aim when I'm competing on stage, is to kind of show people like, your mental health is extremely important. You cannot, I think the problem when you bring up the fitness industry and why it's important, the fitness industry, is because it gets put to the wayside, right?
Yeah.
All of your health, right? If you want to be really good in the fitness industry and bodybuilding, the common notion is you need to forget your health, right? Your physical health, your mental health, everything is in the pursuit of becoming and looking the best you possibly can.
Yeah.
And that might be okay for 16 weeks of time to lead into a prep and look really good or get some Instagram pictures taken or whatever. But where's it going to put you in the long run, right? You're going to burn out really fast. If you do not prioritize mental health,
Yeah.
you're going to burn out. And the reason I'm even here talking about this is because that happened to me. Last year, I got 5th place in Classic Physique Class D at Universe.
Yeah.
And my goal was to turn pro. It was a great show. The other 4 guys in that class are all, I believe, are all pro now that beat me. And the thing is, I did a very long prep, 28 weeks. And at the end of that, I was destroyed. I mean,
Sure.
it took a few months to set in,
Yeah.
but that set up basically the worst mental health crisis I've ever had in my life. I had true depression, panic disorder, and anxiety all at the same time. And it's taken me literally a year to recover from all of that.
A lot of people don't understand that trying to recover, especially from a bodybuilding show. Now, again,
Yeah.
because I was in the fitness industry as a fitness photographer and I dealt with some top people in Olympia and just regular
Oh, yeah.
people that are amateur, I saw a lot of the mental health stuff
Yeah.
going on. So when I used to work with Johnny Casalina, he used to take care of my diet for, lifestyle stuff. I never wanted to compete because it's just, I want to push myself, but not to that limit. Johnny and his welcome packets explain like techniques on relaxation, your stress, your this. And when you actually do check-ins with Johnny, he wants to know how you're feeling
Yes.
personally.
All good coaches do.
And the biggest thing is that I think he's implemented that in a lot of his training with his Pro FX coaches and stuff now, which is great.
Yes.
But in reality, it just was so weird because I went from some good coaches, but never into the depth of like, where's my mental status at, especially through the weeks of dieting and whatnot, and like what's going on. He's like, you're stressed in your life. He's like, he would send me articles on this. He's like, hey, like drink this tea, do this. There was different strategies, and just to have the more modern day coaches,
Yes.
you know what I mean, being more aware of this stuff, because some of the coaches that used to compete, they do know that their mental health probably wasn't taken care of properly. But with that being said, I just remember having those check-ins. He's like, hey, how you feeling? What's this? What's that? And the biggest term that Johnny always used was the post-show blues.
Oh, yeah.
And it's a real thing. And people don't understand is that, you know, you're at this high, you're at this really big high. And whether you win or lose, and then all of a sudden that high goes down, your endorphins go down. And depending on, you know, whatever you were taking at that time, whatever you're eating, and again, he has a very strict protocol to make sure that doesn't happen after a show, because some people rebound.
Oh, yeah.
I've seen people rebound 30, 40 pounds.
Oh, yeah.
3 days later after a show.
Think about what that's doing to you mentally.
Yes.
Right? You had these insane lines.
Yes.
You were sculpted, Greek statue.
Months to build, but then it can take 3 days.
3 days. I actually, Larry Wheels, you familiar with him, right?
Yeah.
He gained, I think it was 56 pounds or 53 pounds in the week after he did the Amateur Olympia.
Yeah.
Might have actually been more. Might have been actually, I think he went from 230 something. I might be wrong about these exact numbers, but like to 280 or 290 something. So, I mean, not only is this extremely physically dangerous, I mean, he posted something and, you know, his blood pressure was miraculously like 130/80, which is ridiculous. But the mental of what that does, where you spent all this time and you saw yourself really lean, like especially for me last year in 2022, I was very lean for 3 months, 4 months. And then you start to see that fade away.
For sure.
And the thing is, that's not, in my opinion, why people become depressed as much as it is. It's this phenomenon that happens when you're working towards any goal. Because I've done a lot of other things like business-wise and music-wise and stuff. And it's like, you know, the only other thing I could equate it to is writing an album. You're just putting so much effort into this one major goal you have for yourself.
Yeah.
And that's competing, right? Or writing the album or whatever. But let's just talk about it as it pertains to bodybuilding, is you're working so hard for this day, right? This 1 day or 2 days or whatever it is that you do for competing. And you're sinking every moment. You're thinking so much about it. You're doing all the cardio, you're eating the supplements, the PEDs, all this stuff.
Well, that's an internal high though.
It is. And so that's where I was going with this. So what happens is your dopamine is just pumping out, right?
The roof.
And so what happens is that after that day has happened, there's no more goal anymore. Yeah. And your life becomes like this vacuum. It's like, okay, what's next?
And that's why I think it's always important, I always say this to people, is have a routine.
Yes.
And yes, we understand you got to work around show day, doing this, doing that.
Of course.
Take a couple of days off. Try to maintain your diet as best you can. Then get right back to it, because that routine is going to be everything to keeping you mentally stable.
Oh, yeah. And I think that another thing to understand is that mental health is a very complex thing, right? It's not something, I think that's why it's very hard for people to talk about and kind of articulate. It's a very broad concept when you talk about mental health. It's like, well, what really is mental health? Is it, you know, am I depressed or am I anxious? Or like those are huge parts of this. But your mental health it's not, you can't measure it the way that Andrew Huberman, who has a great podcast, talks about this all the time. It's like, you go into the doctor, right? And they take your blood pressure, they weigh you and all this different, there's like these physical metrics and they could say you are healthy, right? Yeah. Mental health is a bit,
there is no spectrum.
It's like, and even if there is, it's a wafting spectrum. Yeah. Like today I feel really good, right?
Of course.
Yesterday I was like, oh, okay, you know, and the day before that was pretty good. The problem becomes with mental health is when you're waking up and it's like, I haven't felt good in 2 weeks, right?
And again, I've been in that position too, with full depression and not having anything going. Again, when I was in law enforcement, I had a head injury. Dude, there was months I felt like that. Couldn't get out of bed to go do my cardio I was doing.
I remember seeing those videos you posted,
And it was a very different thing. But what I want to comment is what you're saying, because this is a very, very big topic here, is that there is no spectrum of, oh, there's nothing, oh, it's too extreme, it's not extreme.
Yeah.
Again, simple people that really do understand mental health, that are very in tune, I think, with themselves, the earth, whatever it is, like people that really know about mental health. A breakup is mental health. Like, that is checking up on someone's mental health, because you had someone that was maybe filling up your dopamine levels, you know, making you feel happy, and then all of a sudden they're gone. And that's why I always tell people, check up on your friends. If they're going through something, again, someone had passed away. They say they're fine, but again, their mental health is not fine.
I have a very interesting topic to go off of from that. So in 2020, during the pandemic, the height of it, it was the summer. One of my very best friends, unfortunately, died of a drug overdose. And what happened was, basically, I didn't hear from him for a few days. And this kid was doing really well for like 2 years, a year and a half, whatever. He was in and out of rehab for years before that. But after a while, nobody heard from him. I'm like, all right, well, I'm going to swing by his apartment and check him out and be like, you know, what's going on, man? Like, are you good? Whatever.
A wellness check.
A wellness check, right?
Yeah.
And that's what good friends do for each other, you know? Yeah. And so, you know, if you have friends like that, you should be grateful that they're around for you.
Oh, trust me.
And so I swung by his apartment, and actually one of my best friend's girlfriend, who's also friends with him, she came and met me there. We were both going to go in and just basically have like a little bit of an intervention with him and just say, what's going on, man? Like, we could tell you're struggling a little bit.
Yeah.
Well, unfortunately, we show up to the door, and we knock on the door, no answer, but it's open. So we walk in, the lights are on. And unfortunately, we walked in and found him face down. He was gone.
Yeah.
And the reason I'm bringing this up is because, you know, if you asked me, and this is 3 years ago now, if you asked me right after that happened, because everybody asked me, everybody knew I found him, and they're like, I can't imagine what you're going through. And I'll be honest with you, then I was okay. Yeah. I actually was okay. And the reason for that is because your brain is very, very good at numbing you.
For
right?
sure.
It's like, I couldn't feel anything.
Yeah.
And this went on for 2 years.
It hits you like a ton of bricks sometimes.
Then I believe what happened is, so I'm a very emotional person.
Yeah.
And my range of emotion in those 2 years following, I actually wrote a song about this called These Memories, which we put out earlier this year. But my range of like emotional experience was so small. Right. Yeah. It was just like, I didn't feel much happiness. I didn't feel much sadness. I didn't feel much anger or whatever. Like, I still had these emotions.
You're in between everything.
It's called emotional blunting.
Yeah.
That's what it is. It's a real thing. And this is actually very popular. I'm not very popular. This is very common for PTSD.
Yeah.
And people think of PTSD as being like, this guy was in war in Vietnam, and so when a car backfires, he jumps under, you know, like a street sign or whatever, right? That is definitely partly what it is.
Like you said before, there's levels to it.
Yeah.
There could be just being away from your family, mental health,
exactly.
and then there's getting your people blown up next to you. There's definitely levels.
And so what happened was that my brain, that incident was so traumatic that, and I worked with a therapist to understand this for a long time, is that incident was so traumatic that my brain would not let me feel any of what that actual pain was. And so what ended up happening is, along this way, over those 2 years, my dog died. Yeah. I will never forget this. We were sitting in my whole family was there. It was my sister, my mom, my dad. My dog literally died in my sister's arms. My whole family cried. I could not cry. I'm a very emotional person.
Yeah.
Fast forward to the end of, like, later in that year, this is last year now, my grandfather, who I was extremely close with, same thing. Watched him, you know, take one of his last breaths, walked out of the room. He was basically gone. I gave the eulogy for that funeral. I felt none of this, right?
Yeah.
And then and that whole process was, my grandfather passed away about maybe like a month and a half after I competed, okay? Fast forward about October, all of this starts hitting me. Like, it
can hit you all at once, man.
It was so overwhelming. The emotional, it was like my brain was like, finally like, hey, we're going to let you experience all of this now.
Especially during a change of weather, a change of season.
Well, that's another
one, dude.
Yeah. So I think it just opened, it was like, I finally slowed down enough, because in those 2 years after my friend died, I just kept myself so busy, man.
Well, that's another thing that some people that are workaholics, like me, I'd be working 16 hours a day, so I wouldn't have time to even process. When I'd sit around by myself, I'd finally be like, wow, like, this did happen. again, I have a friend of mine that invited me out to a retreat that's in New York. I'll let you know the details you want to come.
Yeah,
But
I would love that.
it's a they have like teepees and stuff,
Hell
and
yeah.
they do like sauna, steam rooms and shit. It's really cool, but
Love both those
it's a retreat to just like unleash all of your emotions and like
Yeah.
I think Brad Rowe went to one of those. You follow Brad
Yeah,
on
yeah.
Instagram? He's very
Familiar with
spiritually in tune with himself. I follow a lot of his content. Great dude. But you need those type of moments, man, of just like breaking down and letting it out because we just filter and numb things out that like
Well, yeah, men specifically do this
yes.
and are very good at this. And and that's nothing we should be proud of as men. That is the reason, in my opinion, why men are so much more likely to commit suicide.
Oh yes.
I think I put this in our notes, like it was in 2020, it was like were 3.88 times more likely to commit suicide than women.
Yeah.
Well, why is that? It's because women are taught, you know, when I say taught, I'm saying like socially, like it's acceptable to talk about how you feel.
For sure.
Right? It's, as a man, it's basically baked into our subconscious. Like it is for you to sit here and have this conversation like you and I are having.
Yeah.
It's weak. But I actually challenge that whole notion because, in my opinion, what courage is, it's not that you're not afraid of something, right?
Yeah.
Courage is being afraid and still doing something, right? Like I don't have a problem talking about these topics. That's just the way I'm wired.
Yeah.
But to open up as a man when you need help is actually courageous. And the reason I say that is because if I was to sit here and ask you, like, you know, do you think it's more courageous to talk about the things we're talking about? Or do you think it's more courageous to just stuff them down and walk around life with them? Like, the obvious answer is it's more courageous to do that.
Once I started this podcast, the reason why I started this because me and Danny Swole was a very big influencer when it comes to mental health, and me and him are working together, and you're gonna meet him soon enough where we all do this together. But I just got fed up, man, of just like society, of just knowing myself as being weak because I was weak because I wasn't expressing myself in my own head. But society is like, you're strong. No, I feel weak because I'm holding things in that are hurting me. And the moment I started letting things out on social media, I started getting amazing backlash. It wasn't bad. It was like, wow, like I really appreciate you opening up to this. And I've mentioned this in other podcasts. There were a lot of women that encouraged me.
I was just about to bring this up.
There are women that love it, dude. They really do.
That's the thing. That's why men won't talk about this stuff. And there's how many I get constantly on Instagram, see like all these things from these like masculinity pages and stuff, which I think have a lot of good, valuable information.
Yeah.
But one thing that I see all the time that I just cannot stand is what you just said, where it's like, don't show weakness to women. Don't show like, but that's not weakness. Like talking about things that bother you, not weak. Now, where women, in my experience, are gonna be turned off of these things is if you keep talking about it and you don't do anything about it.
For sure.
Right? If like, I'll be honest, when I share something about mental health on my Instagram story or something, I get more likes on my story, responses on my story from women constantly. Women think it's courageous when you talk like that.
Oh, for sure.
Because they know that it is kind of taboo to even be broaching.
This is very hard for us.
Right.
So the courage we have to come out with our emotions, because again, this entire world is masculinity when it comes to the alpha male and everything like that. And again, there's nothing saying that you can't be an alpha male, but I can't remember the boxer's name, but it went viral where the boxer had just won. And after he won, he was talking on the mic. He's like, I went through a lot of depression, man. I didn't think I was going to make it.
You talking about Sean Strickland, maybe?
It might have
been. The
been.
MMA fighter?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he broke down. But again, it's that is the toughest guy right here. It just won. And all of a sudden, you know what I mean? He's getting vulnerable to tell you guys, this is what I had to go through to get to here. This is the challenges and obstacles. Right. And again, you respect somebody like that. And that's me. I just kind of went into this not giving a fuck what anyone thought. And that's the biggest thing that I've realized with social media, because you were always looking at metrics. We're always looking at likes, views, everything. And I just got to the point where I'm like, I'm trying to chase views and likes, but I'm losing myself in the process because I'm not doing what I love.
I think the problem is that all of us, and this is something nobody wants to admit, we are all looking for validation, right? Yeah. We're all looking for validation. And anybody that says they're not is just, that's something you need to admit to yourself.
There's levels to it.
There's levels. I was just going to say there's levels to it.
There's definitely levels.
the girl that's posting the, you know, the bent over, like, here's my hamstrings, whatever, is probably a little bit more needy of that validation than, you know, the girl who's posting something in a sundress or whatever. And maybe you want to get mad at me for that. There's just kind of the reality.
That's a topic that I wanted to bring up too, because I see, and again, you know, I appreciate women just like anybody does, but I don't appreciate. Again, this is a double-edged sword here. I appreciate, you know, arts. I appreciate photography, especially in the fitness industry.
Well, you do.
Because that's where I'm coming from.
Yeah.
But I don't like that I see a beautiful woman that her biggest asset is her ass. I'm just saying, it's just only, but that's what I'm saying is that I see these fitness models, and all they're doing is turning around to show their glutes, and I'm just like, what else are you doing with yourself?
And I'm going to also extend this to men, because it's the same thing. It's like, if you, why do people love?
That's all you have to offer.
Why do people love Chris Bumstead? Yeah, he's got an amazing physique, but Chris Bumstead is one of the realest people on the face of the earth. He would sit down and have the same conversation with you.
Yeah.
And the fact of the matter is that people like him because he has more to offer than his front double biceps, right? He's got more to offer than just this great physique. And I think that's the problem, is that when you circle back to that point we were asking about, you know, the extremes that you have to get to in the fitness industry to be successful or whatever.
Yeah, man.
But there's people that have built careers and followings and things off of, like, Danny's a great example of that, where they're talking about important stuff. It's like, hey, here's my physique might be like the book cover to get you to read the book, but what's in the book is what's most important.
The thing is, and I've told everybody this when it comes to social media, is that you honestly need to close your eyes and just shoot your shots everywhere and see exactly where you land. You can't just be like, oh, I missed it over here, I missed it over there. The thing is, you're casting out 10 different fishing lines and seeing which one hits. But are 10 of those fishing lines something that you're interested in?
Yeah.
Maybe one of them is. And then you're going to continue to chase down this rabbit hole where your creativity, everything is not going to be as experienced as it is, because you're not really passionate about it. And that's why I stopped caring about getting views and whatnot. And I started doing the podcast. I don't care if this gets 0 views. I don't care. It's content that I know that I made with passion. Quality versus quantity.
Everybody that's a creator goes through what you just said. Because when I first started making music, for example, I really cared about how many streams a song gets and how many, you know, do people like it or whatever. What I ended up changing was, so my metric was very tied to, do people like this, right?
Yeah.
So what I would do is, and you can go look my band up on YouTube and read, you know, under our music video comments, you'll find 15 people that say, this vocalist is awesome. I love his cleans and his screams and everything. Then you'll find like one person that says, man, he sucks. And then it's like, that will stick with you more than anything. And the thing is, what I ended up having to do, and I learned this from a pretty young age because I was putting music out when I was 17, 18 years old, is that I am the judge of what's good or not, right? So if I leave the studio and I think, man, this song's really good, I'm really proud of this, I don't care what other people think of it, right? Because the moment you give that up, music is subjective, right? Your physique is subjective. It's literally, it's art. That's why it's different than playing a baseball game, and there's going to be you know, a score at the end of the game. Bodybuilding is subjective, like it or not. People don't like the fact that, you know, Derek beat Hottie in the Olympia this weekend. It's like, well, it's a subjective
I've
sport. Always
respected Daniel and Rob Bailey's approach on everything. Rob does not give a fuck about anybody's opinion. He just cares about putting in hard work. Again, they're making money, yes, but they are passionate about what they do. To work as much as Rob does, he's got, I don't know if you follow his vlogs, but like he's got 5-10 different business things going on. He's constantly, it's what he loves doing. And I think when people out here are listening to this, you really need to find your passion and what makes you move yourself of what you want to do. Because to be a Rob Bailey, you have to not fake it from day one. You have to just do what you want in silence, and then the rest will follow. Dude,
I'm going to tell you this right now. I have, you know, as I'm sitting here talking to you, like, I'm 30 years old now, right? We were just talking about this before I came on here. My entire 20s was one big experiment.
For sure.
I had probably 3 business failures. I've had...
Same here, dude.
Right. I've had 3 business failures. I had one other band I spent 7 years with that literally, I think collectively, streams-wise, does not even eclipse what my probably 5th biggest song with this new band is, and that band's only 4 years old.
Yeah.
Right. And that band was for 7 years. I've lost a bodybuilding overall, 3 times in my life. I've had countless failed relationships. Right. Yeah. And my point of even bringing this up is that people don't see that stuff. Right. No. Once I eclipse what I want to with bodybuilding and music and all these things, now people come and they see my band and they're like, oh, like you have millions of streams on these songs, or, oh, look at your physique now. It's like you
don't know the process.
You don't understand. But the process, and this comes back to what it is to be a man, right? Yeah. Men are supposed to go through what I just said.
Yeah.
To become successful, to become Rob Bailey, to become Chris Bumstead, to become these other people that we look up to, and that younger people that are watching this or listening to this look up to. You're only seeing the end result.
For sure.
Right? As I'm sitting here, if you're watching the video and you see me and I'm stretching out this 3XL shirt, you did not see me when I was 20 years old and I was this skinny fat kid, And
that's the thing, is that social media is only showing the best portions of your life. Yeah. So when I started understanding that after that interview with Elon Musk and Joe Rogan, where he's like, Instagram sucks. I'm really showing you the best highlight reels, the best photos when I look my best. So I started posting things when I wasn't looking my best, and I started.
I've always appreciated that you've done that.
And I started posting when I wasn't feeling my best, because I just think about the people out there that are looking at me and that would always say, "You have the best life, this and that. You travel the world with girls, do this." I said, and I remember. I always have married men comment on my stuff and say, "Man, I live precariously through you, man. I wish I had your life." I said, "Dude, I wish I had your life. Yeah. You have 3 beautiful children, beautiful wife, and home." I said, I love what I do. I love photography. I said, but I'm going after a bigger goal in life. I said, don't think the grass is greener because, it might be boring at home. I said, dude, you have a better life than some people I know, man. So perspective is everything, and perception is reality.
Yeah, and it goes back to something you and I talked about before we started this, was comparison is the thief of joy. Excuse me. Comparison is the thief of joy.
Yes, it is.
And what's happened now is that, I was just listening to a podcast about this actually as I was driving out here. I was telling you about this, is that before, the way that we as humans lived for hundreds of thousands, millions of years, even going back to, prehistoric times, is we had these kin groups that were very small, right? Maybe at most a couple hundred people, right? And then we kept growing those and growing those and growing those. And now we have social media, right? You might be the biggest dude in your gym, right? You might be the best real estate agent in your area. You might be the best photographer in your area. But then you're going on Instagram and you're seeing, well, look at this guy. Look at his pictures. They're amazing. They're so good. Like, I suck, like I need to be better. And it's like, it's a very fine line, because you constantly want to be improving yourself and driving yourself. But it becomes very toxic when you're looking at yourself and you're saying, man, I'm nothing. Like, I suck. Like, why even try this stuff in the first place if I'm not going to be the best?
Hating yourself is a number one thing that I have done the same things, comparing my physique, comparing, job opportunities, comparing everything to everybody. And the thing is, I'm in my own spot. I'm in my own place of happiness.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And on top of that, there are people that claim to be happy that aren't even happy. And it's just, I use this theory in my last podcast, and I just keep mentioning it because this is just, it blew my mind. I have an Instagram crush, and this girl, I always looked at her, and she has a boyfriend. And again, I've always looked, I was like, wow, I want that fucking relationship.
Yeah.
This relationship's everything. They're both in the fitness industry. They're both just, they look beautiful together. They take photos together, all this stuff. This girl reached out to me on a private message and told me that everything was awful.
Yeah, not good.
And I just, dude, I was thinking it took me back. I didn't know what to say. I was paragraphs, because I was opening up about relationships and how I've been hurt and how I just want to find my person and love them. And she was venturing out to me for help to tell this stuff to her boyfriend. And I was just like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
I said, you guys look like you have the perfect life. And it just, dude.
Keyword there, look.
Yes. Yeah. And I was just that moment, dude, that was I think this was almost half a year ago. I don't know, 6 months ago. But it set me back, man. I was just wow, dude. Perception is reality. These things really don't add up.
Yeah.
I said, I would give my fucking arm and leg for this life. But that life's off. So the
But
grass is not always greener.
It's what it is that you would give this your arm for an imaginary thing.
Yes.
Right? Because and this is where I think is that what people don't understand is a great example of this is when you say look, like it looks a certain way, it looks a certain way. People don't understand that, like when you see somebody who's 2 weeks out of competing or a week out of competing in bodybuilding and they look shredded and you're like, man, I would just kill to look like that, right?
Yes.
It's like you have no clue how they feel. Like they're not sleeping well. They feel like trash. Yeah. They're like, if they're in a relationship, they're not really much able to give any affection to the other person at that point.
Yeah.
They're starving constantly. Their whole life is driven by when am I going to eat next? And so what I'm trying to say is that's not to say like, don't compete. What I'm saying is have a realistic view of we as humans have this ability to look at this picture perfect relationship or this picture perfect physique or this amazing stage setup of some artist performing or whatever. And we think like, man, that's perfect. Yeah. And it's like, we're projecting our own imagination onto these things a lot of times. Few relationships are perfect. There is no such thing as a perfect relationship.
No.
Right. And I think the thing is that, and this is actually, I think we should talk about this because I have a feeling you and I have a little bit of a different take on this and I wanted to ask you this do you, and the reason I'm asking you this is because I just listened to a whole podcast on this.
Yeah.
Do you think that people are meant to be together forever? I know I just transitioned this hard, but I'm curious on what your take on this is.
Oh, man. See, in reality, I think that is something that everybody wants. But in hindsight, I think people need to understand that we're always growing as people. And I think somebody that's your high school sweetheart, 10, 15 years later, whatever time frame it is, they could be different.
Yeah.
You got to remember, we're growing every day. So, I love this person now, and 5 years from now, it's a little different. So I would like to be with someone forever, but I want to be with the person that I fell in love with. Do you know what it's very different. Do I think you should be with somebody the rest of your life? It's very hard nowadays, man.
So the reason I asked you that question is because, first of all, I see you post a lot of stuff about it. Like you're looking for your person, you're manifesting. Yeah. I think it was my buddy Chaz posted that thing with his girlfriend on the beach or whatever. And you shared it, you're like manifesting, right? And I was thinking like, it was very interesting is because I used to think a lot like that, right? I used to think like, man, I'm just looking for like my, person or whatever. And I think that the reason I bring this up, and I think this is very interesting, is that I think here I'm using this like I'm not a scientist with this stuff right now.
No, I appreciate you mentioning my own stuff. Yeah, this is good.
No, and I think what it is that people are not designed to be together forever, right? Like we haven't evolved like that. I think it's a very new thing in a lot. And like when I say new, I'm saying like thousands of years, right?
Yeah.
But the reason I even say that is because I asked this question to this last girl that I was dating. I said, like we were talking about, I was like, do you think people are, and she brought up a really good point. She's in medical school.
Yeah.
And she said, she's paused for a little bit and she goes, no. And the reason I say that is because of how powerful the process of falling in love with somebody is. And she said, if you think about it, that process is so strong and powerful that if it has to serve some sort of purpose, right? And obviously the purpose I would think in that is probably if you have children that you're at least are with each other for enough time to raise those kids to the point that like, they could be sustainable, right? And to some extent. But I think what's interesting to me is that the podcast I was listening to is that the researcher basically said that from his research, ideally these pair bonds of like people being together are probably meant to last like 3 to 4 years. And when I heard that, I was like, that's really interesting because I feel like that's like my limit, No,
I mean, I think the longest relationship I've been in has been that. So I can see that being possible for sure.
Not to say that, again, I'm going to sit here and say this, and maybe I'm going to eat my words someday on this.
Yeah.
But there's plenty of people I do know who have made it 60, like my grandparents, they made it 60 some years. They were fine. But they were born in a different time.
Yes, where options weren't everywhere and
that's
way
the
everything
thing.
is now.
And it's like, so if you're a female and you're attractive, you have endless options now.
For sure.
In person, social media, wherever. If you're a man and you're one of the, it's like, I think the statistics, like 80% of women want 20% of men. That's what the statistic is.
Yeah.
Finally got it there. If you are one of those 20% of men,
yeah,
then you have a lot more choice and options. But here's the problem. What if you're not that 20% of men?
You're pretty much screwed at that
And
point.
this where, well, I actually disagree a little bit. This is where it comes back to, and this is why I'm so big on coaching people for physique stuff and just beyond that, like almost like life coaching. A lot of my clients will tell you, like, they look at me as a life coach.
I think that's really, just not to cut you off,
Yeah.
but I think that's really what your industry is leaning towards now. That's why I say with Johnny Casalina, like, he's up to date with everything that's modern, and I appreciate that. And on top of that, he takes like a doctor's approach for a lot of things, and Johnny is constantly working and educating himself to better his business. Like, when I worked with him doing video work, he's constantly learning stuff. And every time, I almost told him I wanted like an internship with him, where like I'd be with him like 1 hour, 2 hours a week. I'd make video content with him for free, and then give me 2 hours of just talking about
just to learn,
just to educate me, because I could be an apprentice for him.
Right.
The way he would just say things to me, I was like, wow. But the modern day coach now, I feel like it's just adding more. It used to be back in the day, no one had coaches.
No.
And they started getting coaches, and then you were getting these coaches that were pumping people up with illegal substances and stuff, and not really worrying about diet. They were just like, old school, because they were just learning.
Yeah.
Now you have these modern day coaches coming in here like, well, I want to improve the longevity of my clients.
Yeah.
I do want to make them happy, but a safe, happy way, and I want them to be healthy. And that's the main thing that people don't understand, is that there are some people projecting out there that they're healthy and they're not.
No.
And a good coach is going to be like, well, and again, it's the same thing with Johnny. He's like, I care about the longevity of you.
Care about you.
Yeah. And that as a person, you feel just very appreciated. And on top of that, he just does the extra measures to make sure that you are healthy. And that's why I've always respected him. But you're seeing it more and more now with this generation of coaches like you. Like, you just give a shit about your clients. And that's, everybody might laugh and say it's a joke, but I've been with some coaches where I've heard some of the things they say about their clients.
Feels like. I've worked with coaches like that.
And that's the main thing, is that you also got to remember that some of these coaches are making money. You're supplying their income. But at the same time, being a good coach is not making sure you win your show every fucking time. Making sure that you improve every show, and making sure that you get to where you have to be.
Here's the deal about bodybuilding in general. You are on stage for 50 seconds. Okay, even if you turn pro, right? You're on stage. They bring you out. You do your comparisons. You go back. You do a 30-second routine in the morning. Then they bring you out in your class, and they do your first call out, second call out, whatever. You're on stage, you're doing comparisons there, right?
Yeah.
That whole thing is maybe of you being on stage is 5 to 10 minutes.
Oh, yeah.
Then in the night, you do your routine, it's a minute, you're on stage, you get your award, you're done, okay? So the reason I'm saying this is because bodybuilding cannot just be about that. That's it. Bodybuilding, the reason I do bodybuilding, the reason I coach people in bodybuilding is because it's about building myself.
For sure.
It's about building myself and improving myself. It extends far beyond just like, look how big I am. Look how, chiseled my abs are. That's a cool side effect of the process of bodybuilding.
For sure.
And so what I do with the guys I work with, I primarily work with men. What I do is I want to make them into a better man so that they're better in their career, in their relationship, on stage.
Just in life.
In life.
I mean, you got to remember, you probably have had clients that just got in the industry. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
People that have never really been in the industry.
Yeah, they don't even know like what's
So again,
what. Yeah.
I always say this. I heard this from a popular Olympian where he said it's a great industry of poor quality people. Now, there's a lot to that. We'll get into that at the end of this. But the thing is that when you're getting someone brand new in the industry, you want to prepare them for what's going to happen. You want to make sure that you guide them through that properly. Yes. But on top of that, it's not, competing is one thing. I get it. But there's other things in life besides that. You can't just, you're coaching them for life. You know what I mean? Whether it's being in a marriage, in a relationship, whatever it is, like you want them all around, not just this 30 seconds on stage, not just this day, that one day out of 365 days. You want it every day to handle yourself properly. And that's where it comes down to coaches knowing mental health. You yourself, putting a client through a routine. Okay, I want you to wake up fasted. I want you to do this, go do your cardio. I want you to meditate, do this. Whatever you have them on a routine, that routine is helping their mental health.
Great example of this is I just had a client compete actually out in Seattle. And he came to me, or we had a conversation. It was like, and this is for very, very, very typical, just so you guys know that are listening to this or watching this. He had a conversation and say, hey, my wife, and like my wife's getting kind of annoyed with me, like doing this or whatever. She's had enough.
Yeah.
And so I had a phone call with him. I said, well, tell me what's going on. And he's telling me, and I'm like, this is all stuff I've dealt with. I've never been married, but I've had girlfriends, obviously. And we're talking. And then so I had a decision to make. And I talked to this client about this. I said, okay, we got like 4 weeks left here. You're a little behind on your condition. I'm going to give you 2 avenues we can go down. And this, in my opinion, is what a good coach does.
Yeah.
A good coach does not take that client and say, I'm just going to run you into the ground and put you on that stage and you're going to win. You're going to get me that overall title. And I'm going to make sure you look really good for me. Right? That's what a selfish coach does.
Oh, yeah. I
had a conversation. I said, there's a few different roads we can go down.
Cookie cutter coaches.
What are you willing to do? Yeah. I said, this is what's going to take to do what I just said.
Yeah.
And this is the other road we can go. And he said, well, I think for the next 2 weeks, I can really afford, because of my job and the way my hours are, like I can really, he's a pharmacist in a hospital. He said, I can really afford to push. I said, okay, so we'll push the next 2 weeks. And I said, after that, it's going to be a little bit different. It's going to be a little harder. I'm going to need to kind of like tweak some things. I said, that's fine.
Yeah.
Because I am here as a coach to serve you. I'm here to help you get to where you want to be. If you come to me and you don't care to win that overall title, then I'm going to help you be your best self in general. And this is why I like working with lifestyle people too, because the lifestyle client is so much more flexible and able. And I'm teaching that person, this is how you handle a situation when you go out to dinner with your friends.
Yeah.
This is the problem that I think is very, very big in bodybuilding and very, very big in people that are trying to have a good physique, is they think they can't go out and have a meal with somebody. It's like, no, what we need to teach you how to do is how to go to that Korean barbecue place and eat the food and make wise choices. We're not trying to restrict the whole
making conscious choices of what to do.
The whole title of that client is a lifestyle client, right?
Yeah.
The point is to teach you how to have a better lifestyle. And what's the purpose of that? It's so you feel better, you look better, and you have more confidence, and you're able to go through life. And so suddenly, we go back to that conversation about the 20% of men, right? Well, suddenly the man that was outside of that, which by the way, every one of us men start there, where none of us are born into being like the 20% of men.
For sure.
Right? We're all that's all made. Some have an easier journey there.
It's built up. Some people are given it. Some people have to work twice as hard. Some people never get it. It is a choice to get to that level.
Yeah.
And you can get to that level. You just have to work for it. Some people, not as much. But to be that 20%, you're not born into that.
No.
Not even if you're born into a family like that. No. It's just, you're not part of it.
You got to make yourself as a man. That's the biggest difference as a man versus, I'm going to maybe catch some flack for this, but if you're a female and you're born and you're attractive, you have the world a little easier. Like men, this is another quote that I love. Women's life starts at 18, a man's life starts at 30. And the reason that quote exists is because of what I just said. Because you have to build yourself as a man a lot more. Women, and this is something we both are experiencing this probably right now. When I was 22 years old, I was watching 22-year-old girls that I knew date these older guys. I'm like,
oh yeah,
kind of like, am we allowed to swear on here?
Oh yeah,
I was like, fuck those guys, man. Like, like fuck him, man. He's 30 years old. He's dating this 22-year-old girl that I want. Like, go fuck yourself.
Yeah.
And so then now I'm on the other side of that, right? And I'm 30 and these 22, 23-year-olds want me.
Yeah.
And I understand this more now. It's because women are more drawn to experience and resources and success and things like that. And it makes a lot of sense, like biologically and evolutionary wise.
Yeah.
Whereas men are drawn, the reason men are drawn to younger women is because of fertility and just it's the opposite. It's like the polarity of like,
it's two different worlds.
It's two different worlds. And people don't like hearing that. People don't like hearing that. It's like
people think the negative stuff so much when it comes to dating and all that. And again, it's like we said, women do want resources. Men, they just want a woman to settle down with or have fun with. But two different worlds. And sometimes women act like men. Sometimes men act like women.
And that's totally fine.
Which is fine.
That's totally fine.
But there's two different spectrums right there.
Yeah.
And again, like I've said it before, is like, you know, I've seen women that are out with older guys, and I'm just like, wow, I'm like, how the fuck can he get this person? Like,
Yeah.
and it just make me baffled. I'm like, you know, I don't even really care at this point. I'm like,
People
it
use
is
all
what
these
it is.
terms like gold digger or whatever. It's
Yeah.
like, you don't understand, like men get really triggered by this stuff because we look at it, it's like, well, it goes back to the comparison thing, right? It's like,
Yeah.
well, this guy has this beautiful car and like this big house and all this
Yeah.
different stuff, whatever. And it triggers you because you don't have that, right? But it's like, but you can work to have that, right? Like, that's how life works. But what I was going to say is that the reason it triggers men, I think, in my opinion, is because it's something that at your core, you don't understand female nature, right?
Oh, yeah.
Female nature is like, you don't understand. As a man, you are just so much more able to protect yourself, right?
Yeah.
Females are not, in a lot of ways, as much able to do that. And so it makes sense that a female's drawn to a bigger, more muscular guy, because in olden days, like, you know, hundreds of thousands of years ago, if some other village raided her town,
Yeah.
she want to know that her kids and her could be protected, and you better damn sure that she wants the dude who can handle himself,
For
right?
sure.
Who has the resources that can feed these kids when food wasn't at our, you know, we walked downstairs at this gym, we could pick up a Lenny and Larry's cookie. Well, it hasn't always been like that. Sometimes you
Big
went
facts.
tons of time without getting food. And so these things, what I'm trying to say is that, yes, we've outgrown a lot of these things, but they're still programmed into our brains.
For sure. I
Right?
definitely agree with that.
The competition aspect that us men feel,
Well, the alphaness.
the alpha.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
again, we can work out together.
yeah,
I would love
Yeah.
working out with you, but I'm not internally. I'm like trying to outlift you.
Exactly.
And it's not even in a bad way. It's like, that's the alpha.
yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, because you don't wanna
We're
be
at the
the
bar
weak one.
together. You know, we're both
Yeah.
looking at the same girl. Who's going to get her first?
Right.
It's an alpha type thing. And,
Yeah.
You know, it's like when they say you have a winner mentality, it's really an alpha mentality.
Right.
You know what I mean? I've been some people that are competitive. It's really the alpha in them. It's not
Oh,
really
yeah.
competitiveness.
And so what you have is this old program. If you want to think about it like this, it's like having a brand new iPhone 15 with the programming of the original, like, BlackBerry,
Yeah.
right? That's a lot what's going on in our brains. And
sure.
people don't understand that. Men get really triggered because they're like, well, you know, this girl's, you know, like, wants these guys that are older and they have more resources or they have more success behind them or whatever. And it's like, well, that's, and I was that guy when I was younger. I was like, fuck that.
Yeah.
But I just didn't understand, right? And it's the same way that, like, men, like, women maybe get triggered a lot. I have a lot of female friends that I talk to this about all the time. A lot of them get triggered, like, well, why do these guys always like these, like, more fit, younger looking girls? Well, it's because it's hardwired into us men.
For sure.
And then let's throw this topic in here. When you are literally taking exogenous hormones as a man that make you more of everything we're talking about,
Yeah.
that is going to just exacerbate all of that.
So many more emotions and things. We're actually at the 45-minute mark, everybody. So I want you guys to subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, and comment down below. We're going to take a quick break, and we're going to get back to this because this topic is going to be very big. So please stay to the end because we're going to be talking about a lot of things in the fitness industry that a lot of people don't want to talk about. So we'll see you guys back here soon. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Mental Health Over Everything. We took a short break after that long conversation that was very informational by David here. Now we're going to dive into the fitness industry, and this is a topic that I've always wanted to talk about, but it's very hard to find somebody that's open and honest to talk about. But David, I really want to get into, you know, the mental health side of, you know, people taking performance enhancers inside the industry, aka known as steroids, gear, juice, whatever you really want to call it. I have a very strong feeling that, you know, mental health and mixing performance enhancing drugs together is just something that's not good in this generation.
Well, let's first look at, and, you know, we were talking about this a little bit before, like, what is mental health, right? And your mental health is made up of a lot of different things. You got your subconscious and your conscious state of being, right? And your conscious state and, like, how you feel, right, which is a lot of what we're talking about with mental health, is dictated by so many different things. One of the biggest is your hormones, right?
Yes.
So if you look at, let's just say, like, men, right? The primary male hormone is testosterone, right?
Yeah.
If you're doing performance enhancing drugs correctly, if that's a big if,
Yes, very big if in the industry.
the bedrock of whatever you're taking should be testosterone, right? Like
Yes.
that should be the
It's the base.
base.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is because of what I just said, right? Now, where things go wrong with performance enhancing drugs a lot of times is they are like any substance, any drug, any pharmaceutical thing, any supplement. If they are used moderately and correctly,
Yes,
they can be fine.
for sure.
They can be fine. I'm not saying they're the best thing for your health, but it's like we as humans do a bunch of dumb shit, right?
Yes.
We can drink ourselves to death. We can eat ourselves to death. We can blast ourselves with gear to death too.
Well, I always said this quote, and I heard this from an older gentleman when I was in high school, man. He goes, we all pick our poison.
That's right.
And
Yep.
again, it could be drinking, could be smoking, because again, smoking kills people more than drinking sometimes. And then it also comes down to steroid use. And again, if you're doing all three, you're really fucked. So
That's what I was just going to say. There's people that do all three.
I know.
Yeah.
And I know, I mean, it's very popular stigmatism that, you know, a lot of people that are in the fitness industry do cocaine.
Yeah.
It's very,
You want to talk about a recipe for disaster when you're taking, you know, anabolics, which are already increasing your blood pressure.
yes.
And then you're going to throw cocaine on top of that, which
Yeah,
will shoot
I
that.
know.
You can have a pretty bad, and then you're a big guy, and then, you know, let's say you got an enlarged heart from these things, right? Like this is where things go wrong, and this is how we've lost a lot of people.
And then there's also people that, you know, will not know how to take this stuff.
Yeah.
And then they'll have a ED,
Yeah.
which is erectile dysfunction,
Yeah.
where your wiener don't work.
Well,
And then they'll try taking cocaine, and then they'll try taking nitric oxide, which is Viagra, because
Yeah.
Viagra is nitric
Right,
oxide
right.
to your heart.
right.
And I think if you've ever heard the podcast with Dan Bazarian,
Yeah.
he was doing cocaine, and then he took 100 milligram Viagra, it didn't work. And then he took another one, and he had a
Yeah.
heart attack.
Yeah, that's dangerous. This is where it gets back to people are very uneducated about performance enhancing drugs, about drugs as a whole, but really where I say the uneducated thing, it's both not knowing how to take things and also not knowing what it actually takes to
Yes.
to build a physique that is you know, even just something that looks great in your own gym.
Yeah.
But then you want to extend that and say you want to win a show in your local area or place really well or turn pro or whatever. I think people, the biggest problem is, I run into this in the gym all the time, especially like LA Fitness or
Yeah.
Planet Fitness. Kids come up to me, like
Yeah,
18,
know.
19,
They
20.
come up to me as well.
And they will say, hey, I'm taking this amount of tests, this amount of trend, this amount of this, blah, blah, blah. Like, how much do you take? It's like, well, first of all, right now I'm taking TRT, so I'm not taking anything you just mentioned. They're like,
Yeah.
what? Like,
Just discretion, everybody that is watching this. If we do mention milligrams, if we do mention anything that is illegal, we are telling you guys from our own personal experience. We are not telling you to take any of these things. This is for educational purposes only, everybody. So again, I'm going to mention a steroid cycle that a 22-year-old kid had mentioned to me that, again, if you guys are younger and you're trying to experiment with steroids, I would suggest contacting a coach that actually
Yes.
knows what they're doing, number one. Number two, do not follow everything that is on the internet.
yeah,
I can tell you right now from working with the guys that are in the Olympia,
Yeah.
the things you were seeing on the internet versus real life, it is 4 times, 5 times the amount. At one point, there was a kid that was convinced that Kai Green was taking 4 grams a test, which is 4,000 milligrams a week. I can tell you right now, these pros have amazing genetics, and they are not taking a quarter of what you guys
Yeah,
think they are taking.
that's exactly right.
So be
Yep.
educate yourself, number one, with the right information. Talk to somebody that does personally do them first. And then on top of that, if you really want to do it, get a coach.
Yeah.
Because I'm telling you, less is more.
And vet that coach. Make sure that coach is not going to steer you the wrong way, because there's a lot of coaches out there who are going to say, oh, yeah, I'll help you out. And then they'll put you on.
I will tell you this right now. That is the biggest thing that a lot of people have to watch out for, are these fucking coaches
Yeah.
that'll put you on a fucking cycle with trenbolone in it, 1,000 milligrams a test,
Yeah.
all this, your first time ever taking
Yeah,
anything.
it's-
Like, you're going to blow up. You're going to evaporate this like a sponge. Listen.
Yeah, you will. But
and again, I will say this: there are coaches out there that just want to get you big because you are a billboard. That's all you are.
That's right.
They don't care
Yep.
about your health.
That's
They want
exactly
you.
right.
You say you want to win. They're like, well, you told me you wanted to win. Listen, there is a mental side to this. You have to have the right mindset to know that not everybody is your friend and not everybody's trying to help you. Get the right coach that knows what they're doing, because some of these coaches will put you on an insane cycle and then you will regret it the rest of your life.
In a good way, if you're watching this, if you want to know how do I pick the right coach, right? Ask them what their credentials are. Like, what have you, like, and the credentials don't have to be just like, oh, I have a degree from Harvard University. I'm talking like, there's a lot of really good, if you're a good coach and you care nowadays, you are educating yourself, right? You're getting certifications. Like, I've gone through J3 University, which is a John Jewett program, where in that entire course, it's very advocated for very minimal use. Okay. The most minimal, when it comes to PEDs, I'm going to even say, I don't care what it is. It could be alcohol. It could be, testosterone. It could be caffeine. You should always use the least amount possible to get you the desired benefit that you want.
Well, your body's different. So nobody, again, I've known guys that are natural, that are freaks of nature. Again, I had a very close friend of mine. He had a beach body all year round.
Yeah.
He never took anything. And I was with him all the time.
Yeah.
He knew nothing about it. And I told him, I said, because again, he's like, dude, you really are a good friend of me. You never pushed me to take anything. And he's like, I know you take things. And I'm like, well, dude, you don't need it. I said, if you absolutely need it, I would tell you how to do it. But at the same time, there are some people that don't physically need it. And that's the thing. A lot of these kids now are not putting in the 3 to 5 years of working out before taking anything.
Dude, I trained I trained for 9 years before I touched PEDs. 9 years.
I trained from 14.
People.
I started at like 20, dude.
Okay, well, that's still 6 years though.
No, I know, but at the same time, in reality, if we can go back and you can go back in time and tell me I'm a jerk off, I'd be like, I would have started at like 25.
Yeah.
Why? Because
that's about when I was 24.
I will personally tell you guys, life is hard already, but it is fucking hard on gear. It's fucking hard on PEDs when you're just starting to learn life, have a job, have a functional relationship. I can tell you right now, part of my relationships ended because of my fucking roid rage episodes. And again, roid rage is a stigmatism. I don't want to say that I obviously take maintenance stuff now. When you are taking things at milligrams, you don't know what the hell you're doing.
Yes.
There are certain things that are bottling up. There are going to be side effects you don't know how to handle. And I will say this, I was not the best version of myself on this stuff at certain times. Trenbolone is definitely not good for me. It made me feel.
I don't know too many people it's good for. Personally.
So again, but there are some people that can take it. It does not affect them.
Yeah.
Some people get agitated, or some people have other life episodes happening or things that stress them out that make it worse. I can tell you right now, being on Trenbolone, it made things worse. A little tiny situation became even bigger.
Yes. Tren is one of those things, in my personal opinion, where it really depends where you are in life, right? It's going to take, okay, so I always use this example. Steroids are very much like alcohol, where they're going to enhance more of what you are.
Oh, yeah.
So if you're this guy that's walking around and you are kind of just an asshole, right?
You're going to be a
fucking dick.
You're going to be a fucking cocksucker.
Now,
Sorry, everybody.
My whole life, I've always been very upbeat and passionate and driven and stuff. And so I'll be honest with you, for the most part, they make me more of that. Okay.
Yeah.
When I've run them correctly, right? Like when I've done things correctly, like they just make me more of who I am. That's what they do. They really make you more of who you are. So, just like alcohol, right? Like you don't drink alcohol and then all of a sudden become just a raging asshole. Like you kind of have that in you already. And the alcohol
it brings you out.
The inhibition in your I think it's your prefrontal cortex is just kind of coming down, and you're kind of just like, testosterone actually has that same impact. I don't know if you knew that, but it has this very similar reduction, like in inhibition, where you are just more likely to take risks, to take leaps and things, and maybe engage a little bit more riskier activities, whatever, because that's what's happening. Now, when you're talking about mental health with steroids, that's what we're mainly talking about. We're not really talking about like human growth hormone and these other things don't really impact your mental health that much.
Yeah.
The reason that steroids impact your mental health is the same reason that, if you're listening to this, guys, that your girlfriends are extremely, moody around when they're going to have their period. It's because of hormones.
Yes.
So men, the way that we are biological men, just say this now, is that, our hormones are consistent. If you're natural, okay, your hormones are pumping out your testosterone, that's converting into estrogen, and then the DHT that comes from all these different things. It's pretty consistent.
Yeah.
It does fluctuate throughout the day and throughout what's going on in your life and everything. Yes.
For sure.
But women are literally cyclical, right? So if they're not on birth control or they have normal like menses function, they are cyclical. So they're going through these cycles every month. Their hormones are going through this rotation.
Yeah.
And that's because that's just how their bodies are, and that's how they function. And so what happens is that you'll notice like the reason women are moody and things around their period is because those shifts in hormones. Well, the same thing can happen as a man if you take steroids and let's say your estrogen gets really out of whack, because that can happen, right? So then suddenly you're just like very moody, emotional, you're angry, you have erectile dysfunction, your libido's tanked and all these things because you're not managing that properly.
Yeah.
This comes back to why it's important when you're starting these things to get somebody to guide you that knows what they're doing, that's made all these mistakes, that knows the possible bad things that can come of this, right?
For sure.
Like if your coach isn't asking you to check your blood pressure,
if a coach doesn't tell you to check your blood every other month or every 3 months, or if
every 3 months is about what it should
be. A good coach will say to you, hey, if you want to start working with me, I just need to get a blood panel done. I need to look over
every single client that starts with me starts there.
So that itself is showing you right from day one that they're actually concerned about your health. And again, I had high cholesterol at one point because I was eating a lot of red meat.
Yeah.
My coach at the time, his name is Brian Chamberlain. He said, hey man, I want you to do this, this, and this. I want you to turn more Mediterranean before we actually really start working together. And then I want you to get this done again. I want to make sure that your heart healthy, your cholesterol is good, your LDL, HDL, all this stuff. That was when I first had my taste in the industry of like a coach that really cared.
Yeah.
It's the first time I had a coach ask me. And again, that was about 6-7 years ago. So again, since then I've seen more coaches do it. Before then, I didn't get anything, no blood, nothing. It was just to take this, take that. Another big thing that kids don't understand is post-cycle. Now, there's a very big topic on that we might say for another video, but post-cycle is very important. But when prolactin builds up in men, right, it gives you ED, erectile dysfunction.
Yeah.
A lot of men or a lot of younger kids that don't know what the hell's going on in their body will think that the prolactin will be taken away with anti-estrogens, Novex, which is tamoxifen. It doesn't. There is a tiny tablet called cabergasolin, which is
cabergoline. Yep.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So that is something that'll lower the prolactin. Now, prolactin, everybody, is basically, it's what it is. It's your actual body will start lactating.
When you see men that are lactating, that's what it's from. It's
prolactin
that's what
building
it is.
up.
That's what it is.
Now, it gives you extreme erectile dysfunction. You become lethargic. Sometimes you get tired from it.
Well, the reason that happens is because, so after, like, as a man, like, after you orgasm, your prolactin dramatically shoots up. Yeah. And the reason for that is because you, like, if our bodies didn't do that and we just could keep doing that and reproducing, we would just make so many children. It's an evolutionary thing, right? So what happens is that when the prolactin is elevated like that, you end up just having a constant state of that, right? So it's telling your brain like we're not supposed to be like reproducing right now, right? And so unfortunately, and you mentioned cabergoline, there's 2 drugs that do that. It's
and the natural one I think is fenugreek, right?
Yeah.
Fenugreek.
There's actually vitamin B6 is very good at that.
Okay.
But I caution people with cabergoline, or there's another one.
It's toxic.
Very toxic. And what it actually cabergoline
takes everything away within 2 weeks.
And what cabergoline actually is it's a Parkinson's drug. And it's a dopamine agonist. And so what can happen is if you use this stuff, I see this all the time with guys. Coaches will give the cycle out and be like, take 300 tren or whatever, and then they just throw somebody on cabergoline with that. And it's like, how do you know that client needs that? What you need to do is get blood work done, because the reason that drug's very dangerous is if you take that for too long, you could potentially have severe depression after that. Severe.
The only time I ever took it, I would take, it was a high milligrams, 1 milligram. I would take 1 milligram once a week for
Yeah,
like
that's
2
pretty high
weeks.
dose. Yeah.
2 weeks, and then it'd be gone. I never was on it longer because
That's how it should be used, though. If
Yeah.
you need it, then you hit it quick and you get out.
And again, some people I've heard, again, kids tell me this at the gym. They're like, well, yeah, I took 1 milligram 3 times this week. I'm like, dude, that is so fucking dangerous.
Yeah.
And again, you see how your reaction is? That's my reaction when I'm hearing this.
I hear this stuff, and I'm
another
like,
thing
dude,
that people don't
doing?
understand is that when you're running anything other than testosterone, there is primobolan, there is trenbolone, there is EQ, DECA, anything that's not really testosterone, it makes your red blood cell count double, doesn't it?
Well, so it actually can happen with testosterone. So it's something called erythrocytosis, where basically you will essentially create more red blood cells. Now, there's other certain drugs
with the testosterone, though. It does happen, but it happens like 3 times faster with the other drugs.
You mentioned EQ, boldenone,
that's a very
equipoise.
strong one.
That's probably the most likely one to do that. Nandrolone, DECA, NPP, those also do it a lot. But the thing is that
the term DECA comes from the prolactin buildup.
Yeah, anyway. it's that. Yeah, there's the progesterone and how this all kind of plays in. The other effects with estrogen, you can have estrogen related erectile dysfunction. You have progesterone. Prolactin related that. Yeah. But the point is that these things, and I want to make this extremely clear to people. And we're recording this podcast at a gym, right? I walked downstairs we took a break to go to the bathroom. There's all kinds of guys in there, and they're looking at me and like, they're like probably thinking like, I wonder what that guy's running. Like, I want to be extremely clear about this. If you want to build a great physique, it takes way less gear than you think. Oh, yes. But it takes way more time and effort than you think.
And that's the generation that we're in, that I want to get here now.
But that's in that generation, it's everything, right? Like we all want that. We all want the podcast to go to a million views, and that's everything. We all want to accelerate everything, and that's a very normal human thing. But the problem is that if you want the accelerate the growth of the podcast, imagine if you could pump it full of some trend, right? It'd be awesome.
No, but I get it.
But it's the same concept.
Everybody, it's the here and now. Nobody in this generation, including
delayed
us,
gratification.
We want things to happen now, and if it doesn't happen now, we start to self-sabotage.
Yes.
We start to doubt ourselves, and we start to have that mental health side of it where we're just like, are we even good enough to do this? And that's where it comes into play, where I said earlier, I said, you have to not fucking care about the views, care about the results. You need to just work at your own pace, because everyone's different. Chris Bumstead was not born that way.
No.
I've seen him come up over the years.
Yeah, me too.
And again, it's a lot. And again, this is the reason why I wanted to make this video. I think it's a very touchy subject, talking about steroids. And again, I've never seen myself talking about them. But in hindsight, I think it is so crazy that, 10 years ago going in a gym, there's 100 people, 20 of them were on gear. And now you go in the gyms now and there's
like 100 people.
Dude, it's like 60 to 80 of them. Well, even women are taking.
And you see how this works then, right? Because if I'm a 20-year-old kid and I'm like, okay, like, so I'm taking 500 test and 400 DECA, but then there's Dave. He's, borderline. He got 5th in Universe last year. He's going to turn pro probably in the next few years or whatever.
Yeah.
Dave must be taking 2 grams because he's so much bigger than me. It's like, dude, I've trained 10 years longer than you. Like, you don't understand that?
And
like,
that's the thing, man. Like, I didn't start realizing until the last 5-6 years of my life that taking less has benefited me more.
Yes.
My mental health, everything. But on top of that, just the longevity of my body.
Yeah.
I don't have aches and pains. I feel great.
It takes so long.
I've taken 1,000 milligrams of tests for like 8 weeks. And I'll tell you what, I got very watery. I was feeling lethargic. I wasn't feeling, and I remember I think I was like 22 at the time. I was like, I'm going to take this. I'm going to take DECA. What happened? I got DECA dick. DECA, I can smell it. It makes my dick not work. Again, it happens with some people and it doesn't. But I remember taking this large amount. I'm like, I'm not seeing anything
different.
And the older guys are in the gym. He's like, dude, back in the day, I've never gone over 500 milligrams of test. And that's a base. He's like, now the older generation that do TRT, which is a TRT dose is mostly in the bodybuilding industry. A TRT dose with a doctor is like 200 milligrams a month.
At most.
Well, at month
Yeah.
though.
Yeah.
But in the maintenance bodybuilding industry, it's 200 milligrams a week, which is
Yeah.
still a very low base, but it's a good base to go off of.
Yeah.
I know people that have won shows on 200 milligrams of
Yeah,
tisipionate.
exactly. Yeah.
So it's like you guys want to rush the process, but these younger kids, again, this is my rule of thumb when I'm at the gym. I'm very open with people. I'll tell them, hey, you know, I've taken steroids,
Yeah.
done this. But if they're under 25, I talk them out of it. If they're over it, I tell them.
That's exactly my threshold.
And I tell them at 25 or more, I say, hey, listen, and guys are in their 40s. They're like, yo, you know, what's it like taking tests? I'm like, if you've never done it and you're doing it now. But the thing is, there's a certain level.
TRT maybe at that age.
It depends. If the kid's been, if he's like, oh, I've been working out since high school, I'm trying to do this, and they're over 25, I'll say, listen, you know, if I were you, start out with a baseline of tests, maybe an oral. I said, but don't go into the extreme stuff. I know a 22-year-old kid right now that's running 1,000 milligrams of test. He is running 800 milligrams of Deca. He's running 350 milligrams of Trenbolone acetate while taking 50 milligrams of D-bol. Everybody, do not take these measurements and think that this is a joke. That is the worst fucking cycle I could ever tell somebody to do.
Yeah.
If I wanted to tell somebody, hey, do you want to not live longer and do you want to have extreme side effects? I will tell you that exact fucking cycle.
Yeah.
Nobody in their fucking mind should be taking a gram of test. And again, are there people out there that do it? Yes. Some of the pros, again, on a whole, if there's 100% of pros, I can tell you maybe 20% of those pros are taking high dosages like that. The rest of them, they're maintenance. The rest of them, it's focusing on diet. It's focused on technique, everything.
It's the boring shit that nobody wants to talk about or hear about. It's like, and the thing is that, like, you talking about that kid taking those doses, right? It's like that. I'm going to tell you what's going to happen to that kid. Okay, if he's
already having heart issues.
Yeah. Well, if he's lucky enough to make it through that, right?
Yeah.
He's going to not last long in this sport, because what's going to happen is that he's going to burn out, right? That's what happens. It's like if you drink 14 cups of coffee in the morning, you're going to probably feel great for about, 5 minutes, and then you're going to have panic attacks for the rest of the day. You're not going to make it through the day.
Yeah.
Right. And so what happens is that when it comes to steroids is like, and I've watched this, I have very good friends that I've seen do this kind of stuff. They competed for maybe 2-3 years.
Yeah.
To be great at bodybuilding, to turn pro, to be good as a pro, you got to be extending your time horizon 10 to 15 years. Okay. It takes a long time to be good at anything, let alone building your body and becoming one of the best bodybuilders in the world.
And I will say this, everybody, and this is something that I might get a lot of hate for, but I'm going to say it anyway. Just because you turn pro does not mean you're a fucking coach.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. If you're a pro and you're a coach, cool. Again, this is the most common thing that I hear people say is that, oh, you're a COVID pro, meaning that there were people during COVID that knew they could get into a show that was smaller because people weren't showing up, and they became pro.
Yeah.
I don't respect people that did that intentionally. Now, again, the people that have the representable physiques, yes, I respect it. But I have known people, and this was the biggest problem when it came to men's physique. Okay? Men's physique is great, but you had people that were fucking bodybuilders that could not become pro.
Yeah,
they dropped the weight, and then they went down and became men's physique. I know a couple people like that. I know somebody that did 2 shows and became a pro in men's physique.
Yeah.
It does not, a pro card does not mean that that person is going to make you a pro. I'm just telling you guys this now. Not every pro in the world can do this. So you have to be mindful, and you have to know, like we said earlier, know the coach's background.
Yeah, just even like you can get a very good understanding of somebody's knowledge, and it's like what you really want in a coach is, I'll be honest with you guys, anybody could sit here and manipulate your calories and tell you to do cardio at this time and that. Like, that doesn't take somebody that's very intelligent. I'm going to be honest with you. It's not hard. What is hard is when there's problems. What happens when my estrogen's high, or my prolactin, or what happens when, it's like I'm not sleeping right and I'm 2 weeks out, and then it's like you got all these. Then suddenly that coach has you on like 47 different drugs. And then he's like, just take this drug to sleep. And it's like, this is where it comes down to understanding and knowing, like, or like running into some digestive problems or something. This is where a coach's understanding and knowledge really fucking matters.
Gut health is so normalized now, which it's normalized in the sense of people don't listen to their gut health. And I will say this is that your gut health is the most important thing that you personally need, everybody. And I will say this. If your coach is not concerned with your gut health, you do not have the right coach. Yeah. The first thing that, like I said, with the blood work with Johnny Castellini, he gave me supplements for my gut health. He told me how to take this, how to take that. He wanted to know how I felt after taking this. gut health is the most important thing when it comes to your body. And again, if you don't think, again, if you're not having 4 or 5 meals a day and you just think steroids are going to take you to the next level, it's not. Some genetic freaks maybe in the fucking 5 percentile, but if you were not eating consistently, I remember these younger kids coming out to me and saying, I said, well, how much are you eating? I said, are you eating 8 to 10 ounces of chicken per serving? Yeah. I said, how are you measuring it? And they're like, well, I just throw in the ball. I know how much. I'm like, how do you know? Again, 8 ounces of chicken and 10 ounces of chicken.
They're pretty different.
They're two totally different things, especially eyeballing.
Yeah.
But again, if you're only eating 2-3 meals a day or eating once a day, which a lot of people do, and they're like, well, this fucking gear is not working, it's fake. No, the thing is that you need to consistently eat meals like that every day.
For 10 years.
And that's the thing.
Yeah.
Like I remember Rashaba.
Yeah. Yeah.
I had to film with him one time and he told me, he's like, bro, I didn't miss a meal for like 10 fucking years.
Literally. Yeah.
And again, I like everything. I love his physique, but I also just love it, just his whole lifestyle.
Well, I think this is a really good part to talk about this as it connects to steroids is, we said this at the beginning of this, you pick your poison, right?
Oh, yeah.
And a lot of people, the reason they get into steroids and bodybuilding and stuff, and I'll be honest with you guys, like the reason that probably anybody's really drawn to this is because they're looking to basically fill some void inside of themselves to some extent. I'm not saying this is everybody. Okay, that's what probably brings people to it. I don't think that's what keeps people around. I think that's two different things. I've always had this extreme sense of like trying to be an excellent vocalist and a great business owner and a pro bodybuilder and all this different stuff. And I can see the reason that is the case is that it comes back to something, and I'm sure my parents are going to watch this, but my parents loved me very much, but they never accepted me because I was, I'm a very different person, right? Like my sister's the more, she's the PA and she went through, she got the 4.0 and
it's the same with me.
Right. So
I'm the black sheep.
Right. So I'm the black sheep. So I can see now,
sheep.
I can see now that I was driven to these things because I was looking for validation. Oh, yeah. Right. And that's okay to admit that. That's fine. That's
a lot of people, that stigmatism on seeking validation is, it's not always negative.
No.
You want to seek validation. It can be.
That's what's driving that kid to take all that gear. I can guarantee it. Yes. And so what my point is that you have to understand when I'm saying this, that you're never, if you are this person and you're just beginning down that road, you're not even going to realize it until 10 years later, right? Yeah, it's a shame, but the point is that it's part of humanity. It's just part of being a human. It's normal. We're all working through things from our childhood and things that we don't understand.
I didn't start taking care of my childhood trauma until 4 years ago.
Right. And you're 32, right? So you were 28. Like that's.
And the thing is with that, man, is that some people can, again, it's like you're numb to your trauma. I went my whole life not knowing that I had to figure out my trauma.
You didn't even know that was a thing.
No.
It was just a part of you. It's just your life. It's who you are.
Until I really started getting more in tune with my emotions on why I was acting the way I was, why I was doing this. Taking fucking anabolics, man, when I was taking Trenbolone, and I was thinking, I was like, why the fuck is my life worth it anymore? Again,
right.
There'd be times where this is very hard to call yourself out on your own shit mentally. I remember I didn't know what was going on with me, but every time I had some type of episode, it was on a certain drug, Trenbolone.
Yes.
It was not good for me. But I realized that I would always think so negative. Like I think negative regularly, but this was to like times 10, where I was like 10 times harder on myself. And it was because of the shit I was taking.
Yeah.
And it was making me feel worthless. It was making me stressy. It was making me not eat at all.
Yeah. And then it's like you're taking this drug to help you look better or whatever. And then it's like, then you're not eating. And it's like,
it messes up your mental, man.
Yeah. And so, the point I was making about the validation thing is that what happens is that if you are that kind of person, you have to understand that nothing's ever going to be good enough. Right. So meaning like, you're never going to build a physique that you feel is like, oh yeah, I finally did it. Now I feel accepted, right? Because everybody's going to come up. This is what happens to me if I go out to a bar or I go out, if I go to a new gym or something, I have countless people come up to me. Man, you're huge. Like, I want to be like you, especially the drunk guys at the bar. Oh, you're huge, man. I want to be like you. What do I have to do to be like you? It's like, you know, that was cool for the first couple years. Right now, it's kind of like, all right, dude, like I'm tired of hearing about this.
Yeah.
But what's funny
You
is
get picked up on more by dudes than chicks.
Right.
It's fucking crazy.
Girls admire from afar. It's just how they
Yeah,
are in general.
for
But
sure.
what I'm saying is that you have to heal that internal need for validation within yourself. You have to learn to love yourself and accept yourself. I know this sounds really like spiritual and
It's cliche and
cliche,
whatnot, but
it's
it's a true
true.
thing. You don't realize it until you're really self-seeking yourself.
There's never going to be enough people that tell you, you know, Brandon, you're enough girls that tell you, I love you and you're so good looking and you're jacked and you're so successful and everything. If you don't feel those things yourself, does not matter how many people tell you that. It does not matter what I personally feel, like how many people have told me over the years, your music's changed my life. You know, I follow you because you're motivational, whatever.
For sure.
My point is that you have to find that in yourself. And what I'm saying this as somebody that's gone down 10 years of probably more of that is, if you think steroids, and I know people are listening to this and thinking like, what does this have to do with one another? Well, it has a lot to do with it because bodybuilding is
This is the back end of it.
This is the back end.
Don't talk about.
It really draws people in that are like what I'm just saying, because it's a great way to get validation, right? If I can build a great physique, then people will love me, right? Girls will love me, guys will admire me.
That's the trickery, man. I have the nice car, I have the nice teeth, the tattoos, all that. So like again, there's I started realizing that certain people need validation. Like I used to be manipulated by certain women and certain people that I wanted to show them I was a good person, but that was their way of manipulating me, just telling me I wasn't.
How good? Yes.
They would tell me how I wasn't a good person, and I'd be like, well, why am I not a good person? I'm only doing, and that was the manipulation, is that I was seeking validation from people that didn't have my best interest. And I think a lot of people do that. And I had a friend of mine, you know, he's a very successful person. He was cheating on his girlfriend. His girlfriend left him. I had talked to this dude every day for almost fucking 6 months, calling him, boosting his, hey man, you're a great dude. Don't worry about her, this and that. Only to find out that he was feeding me lies. He did cheat on her. He did. He would fuck until he was red in the face say he didn't. Yeah. And it took him almost to a year later to admit to himself, yeah, I did do these things, admitted to the girl he was with. So what I'm saying is that he needed to seek validation every day that he was a great dude. Yeah. And anybody
you had to reaffirm that.
I had to boost his ego and say, dude, any girl wants to be with you, man. You're a great looking dude. You got money coming in. You got this, that, businesses. I said, you're a great dude. He needed to hear that to get out of bed. Yeah. And that's when I started feeling, like I said, there's everybody in this world that needs to seek that validation. And again, I was in that position years and years ago where like I'd have certain exes tell me, oh, you're not a perfect dude to have a fucking family with, this and that. I'm like, how are you? And it was a manipulation tactic. Yeah. People are always seeking validation. And once you get that out the way, especially when it comes to the bodybuilding scene, some people need to be at a certain status to be happy, but they're not happy within themselves. If you were not happy within yourself,
then no matter what status you get to, you'll never be happy.
You get the pro card.
Yeah.
And
then what?
And but that's the thing. What is the biggest question here? You got to ask yourself a question. Why are you taking gear to begin with? Is it for competing purposes? Is it for self-validation, seeking attention? What is it? What is your main goal if you want to take something? Because I will tell you this. Once you do get your pro card, once you do get the trophy, if that was just your goal, what happens after you win?
Yeah.
You get the post-show blues even though you won.
And I feel like what we're talking about right now is very making bodybuilding sound like not a good thing or something. So I want to be clear about I want to say this. Bodybuilding's changed my life for the better dramatically.
Yes.
It has built me into being a very confident man. It's built me into, it's built my career. I make a living off of coaching people and stuff. So I want to be very clear about this. I would not do this and I would not coach people if I did not think it was something that was good. But I do want to say that what can happen is that it can be very toxic, like anything. Anything can become toxic if you are doing these things for the wrong reasons. I have literally changed my entire life by building myself.
Yes.
I said myself. I didn't say my physique, right? Alongside building my physique, I have aimed to personally develop myself and build myself into a better man. That has been the goal of my life. That will be the goal of my life until I leave this earth. And so one day I'm not going to be able to train the way I do, to take, you know, PEDs and these things. One day the doctor is gonna probably tell me, hey, you need to slow down, right? Or I'm gonna come to that determination. And the thing is that what's gonna happen after that, right? Am I gonna just like lose my whole identity? No, because
that's a very, I mean, you probably have dealt with this with certain people. As soon as people fall off anything, they feel they have nothing
they
left.
have nothing.
But the thing is, everybody, is that you do have so much more to give to this life besides that
Your physique,
part of it.
whether
And that's
you're
the
fit.
and that's the mental side of everything when it comes to bodybuilding. Don't just think. And again, I've always respected my one client, Carlos Thomas Jr.
Oh, I
because
love him. Yeah.
Carlos, number one, if you talk to him for 5 minutes, you just see what a great dude he is. His dad is at everything he does. What a great family. I've met his whole family, amazing people. Carlos loves bodybuilding, but it's not everything to him.
Yeah.
Meaning that he got his college degrees. He has a separate job. You know, he literally takes time off, any health reasons whatsoever. Like, he listens to his body and he listens. There's more to life than what he's doing. It's a passion of his.
And there's a guy who could possibly win the Olympia someday.
And
right
that's,
there, in my opinion.
And his physique and genetics are just so unbelievable.
Yeah.
I had him here the one time when we were doing, it was the stimulation thing. I forget exactly what it's called, but there's a girl named Liani here that does, and I forget the name of her
I know what
business.
you're talking about. Yeah.
I'll tag her business down below, everybody, but we were doing it and just like seeing the anatomy of this guy and just the way he lifts smart.
Yeah.
His one trainer, Kyle Smith, I worked with them, seeing them work out. The way they work out is just the mechanics of everything. Like, everything is down to a science. But the thing is, I think Carlos can walk away tomorrow from this industry and he's still happy.
Yeah.
There
yeah,
are some
man.
people in this industry that could never leave. They're going to leave in a box dead.
That's why, like, you know, I have so many other things I do in life, right? Like, I coach people that are both in this world and out of this world in lifestyle. I make music. Like, you know, the life is more than just looking awesome and on the beach or on stage.
It can go away in a
It can
flash.
go away like that, man. And all you got to do is get hurt or get your mental health fucked up to find that out. And I've lived both of those things. So I want to be clear about this, is that you're building your physique is a great and noble aim, especially as a man. I am a man, so that's the only experience I can talk about. There's merit to this as female as well, but I'm talking to men right now, because men are the guys that are blasting trend and stuff for the most part.
Yeah.
So
I know some women doing it, but
I know, I don't even want to get into that.
I know.
But what I want to say is that if you think that you're just going to build this amazing physique and all your problems are going to go away, it's not going to happen.
No.
You're going to...
There'll be more opportunity in some ways, but it's not going to make your problems go away.
You know what? I'll be honest with you guys. Like, have I gotten prettier girls and more attention and more validation and all this stuff since I've become bigger and more jacked? Yeah, I have. I'm not going to sit here and lie to you. Yes, I have. Is it because I'm more confident or because my muscles are actually bigger? I don't know. It's probably both. But the thing is that you can't just... That cannot be your whole aim in life.
No.
You need to have what really is going to make men, we're talking about mental health here. What makes men happiest and most fulfilled and have the most sense of accomplishment in their life is having a purpose. And that purpose, every day I wake up in my life, I know that everything that I do, from coaching people to making music to posting on Instagram, comes back to my purpose. My purpose is to help inspire people. It's to help people heal in their own lives. And it's to help people transform their bodies and minds. And so everything I do comes back to that. So I feel a tremendous sense of fulfillment and accomplishment every day of my life. Bodybuilding is a part of that. It's not the whole thing. And this is coming from a guy, my goal in 2024 is to turn pro in classic physique.
Yeah.
Okay? So I'm just letting you know that there's more to life than that. And I wish I could have seen that when I was younger. I'm very happy that I didn't do anything reckless when I was younger. Yeah. I waited until I was 24, 25. I think I was 24 when I touched PEDs. But I even sometimes wish I waited longer. And, you know, like Brandon said, the best thing you could do is to just get somebody to guide you, like me or somebody else out there that knows what they're doing and who's made mistakes and seen other people make mistakes. Don't go and watch some kid on TikTok who says, yeah, blast 700 milligrams a tren. Yeah, let me know how it goes for you. That's going to...
And this is the thing. Like I said earlier, this is transparency here. I was never the best version of myself in my early 20s because I was taking performance enhancers. I'm not saying I was a terrible person, but I wasn't the person I am today. And me and Dave collaborating on this means a lot to me, because this is the first time I finally have somebody that's making, I'm not going to say the first time, I have plenty of people on here that make a lot of sense, but this is a very in tune, real, raw podcast of just our real experiences in life. And my experience when I started doing these things is I was seeking validation a lot. I was that guy in the gym that was trying to be a bodybuilder, carrying a gallon of water. I was like, I'd be eating everything. I'm like, I'm bulking. It's bulking season. Like, I would just be this meathead, man. And it really wasn't what I wanted to be. That wasn't my passion. And that's the thing. Like, I was taking one extreme to another. And I personally, like, I didn't have a purpose. And that I've said this in so many of my posts and podcasts. When I had lost my job, when I was in law enforcement, I lost my purpose. And those 2 years when I was trying to do travel photography, find out a new career, everything, that was the worst 2 years of my life.
That's interesting.
And again, people thought I was living my best life. But
right. You would never think
I woke up every day and I was like, what is my purpose, man? And again, the most simplest purpose that men have is reproducing.
Yeah.
When you have a child, I found my purpose being a father.
Yeah.
I'm not a father. Maybe one day, very soon. I don't know. But the thing is, you need to have purpose. And I had a friend of mine that was, a really big power lifter. He was crushing records, this and that. He wasn't happy. When he had his first child, he's like, dude, I'm the happiest I've ever been. I still power lift. He goes, but like, I am so happy that I have a purpose being a father.
Yeah.
You need to find your purpose in life and what makes you come alive, what makes you feel you.
Yeah.
If you were just taking performance enhancing drugs and looking in the mirror and judging yourself, judging other men, comparing yourself, whatever it is, if you don't have anything else on the back burner of that, you can have a very sad life and your mental health will struggle. And this is primarily the reason why I wanted to make this stuff. There's many reasons, but the steroid use and everything that is in the fitness industry is not talked about enough. I know people are now modern day talking about this stuff.
Thank God.
But the mental health side of it is something that needs to be in society more, because these kids are not knowing that when they're putting these drugs in their body, if they're not doing it right, they could be health effects, the mental side of it, everything. And again, man, I just always think about this when I think about a younger kid. I think about my young self taking fucking Trenbolone and taking all this fucking gear while having a mental breakdown. I would have killed myself.
Yes.
And that's what I fear the most, is because I'm not saying this younger generation is softer. They are in some ways. But having an episode regularly, you can be okay. But having an episode or having thoughts of suicide on gear can be so much worse. And the younger generation doing that, man, it's very scary.
And I'll be honest, man, I've been there. Like, I've been there probably more recently than I'd like to admit. And the thing is you have to. The problem is that I know where that's coming from because I'm knowledgeable, right? But the kid, it's like, I'm like, okay, well, I kind of feel this way. My estrogen's probably off. But the kid who's 20 doesn't even know where that's fucking coming from. They think it's
that's exactly
my reality. That's what they think. That's where it's like I said before about mental health. Mental health is a collection of a lot of different stuff. It's all these things. It's your childhood trauma and your last relationship and how much caffeine you have in your body right now. And it's like then your hormonal profile and then all these different things, and it's all rising up, right? It's all coming up and it's becoming conscious in your mind. And what happens is that then you're going to just literally take something and just inject a ridiculous amount of testosterone. Now, how do you think that's going to impact that? It might make, it could go a couple ways. It could make you a lot better and a lot happier, but what's going to happen when you stop taking that dose, right? If you come back down to TRT or you have to have and build a life that is sustainable and actually has purpose. Like I said, I'm telling you, men today are more lost than ever. There's a reason why if you're under the age of 55, the most likely thing to take your life is your own hand, killing yourself. Okay. Is. And so the problem is that men are lost and confused. And so and this is what gets me going, is the fact that there's so many people out there that will use that. You're talking about manipulation. They'll manipulate people into believing like, well, if you just follow my way of thinking about drugs or whatever, or PEDs, just do this. And then, let me guide you and then you'll be happy. Men are so vulnerable to this right now because men are watching other guys you know, they're seeing this. I saw this when I was in the gym when I was younger. They're watching a guy like me who is more advanced now, who all the girls are looking at and girls are coming up to, and guys are admiring and stuff. And they think like, I want to be like that. I'm lost. I'm hurting. I'm suffering. And what's going to help me get rid of this suffering? It's going to be being like him, right? It's going to be like being like him. It's like, dude, when in reality, no, it's not.
You don't know behind closed doors that guy could hate his life.
Yeah. And it's, and more than that, it's like, you don't even understand what it takes to do that. And then you're just going to extrapolate. Why don't you go talk to the guy, right? Like, that's the thing I would say too, is like, guys like me, or at least me, I'll speak for myself, but a lot of bigger guys you'll find are very open, and they'll help you. They'll tell you, like, don't do that. Like, don't take that shit. Like, don't do that. Don't just assume things. Ask questions. Be curious, you know, but more than anything, you're not going to solve your pain and your suffering and all this stuff by taking PEDs. You're going to solve that by digging yourself out of that hole with your own two hands and building a purpose for yourself in life. And that's hard work, man. That's hard work.
Trust me,
coming out of a hole is hard work. It's taken, I told you at the beginning of this podcast.
Coming out of a hole at 20 years old, though. You know what I mean?
You don't even know you're in a hole at 20 years old.
But that's what I'm saying. Yeah. What you had said, you know, I know what's going on. I can take the medication to do it. I know what to do at this age in your life.
Yeah.
But going back to a kid that has no idea, and when I say kid, I'm saying, you know, in the 18 to 20, some kids at 17 or
hell, there's kids in high school taking gear.
And that's the thing. You already have life going on.
Yeah.
It's just your hormones are already changing because you're growing as a person.
You're 17
You don't
years
even know
old.
who
You're
the
like,
fuck you are yet. And again, you haven't even been to college where your whole life gets flipped upside down already.
Yeah.
Because now everything that happened in high school is completely different in college. You can reinvent who you are. And that's where you start taking little bits of your past and thinking, well, I'm going to change this. Yeah. And I've just seen these younger kids start, you know, again, and this has nothing to do with Chris Bumstead, but they look up to him and say, I'm going to be him. You can be him, but you cannot be him in 2 fucking years.
Yeah.
Chris Bumstead, you know,
he's like 29 years old. He's 28, 29.
And the thing is that guy went through up and back to be where he's at. And that's why a lot of people respect him. And they're like, well, I want to be like Chris Bumstead. Well, you have to do the same path he did. He went through some fucked up shit.
Yeah.
And again, everyone thinks he's the most attractive dude this night, gets all these bitches. He has one woman, but him and his woman have been through shit.
Yeah, they have.
They have. She had put up posts before where they were no longer speaking, and then they worked it out. But that's another thing, is that when you have, again, mental health side of this, imagine dating someone that's toxic and doesn't understand your mental health, and then you're still taking gear. But you know what I'm saying? And then that's when things start happening. And that's why, you know, the suicide rate is where it is. Domestic violence is where it is. It all trickles down, but you have to take everything with moderation.
What is very interesting as we're having these conversations, I'm realizing something, is that this same thing that drove my friend who unfortunately died of the drug overdose to take heroin is really the same thing that drives people to take steroids. It's a feeling of inadequacy. It's a feeling of wanting some sort of end to your suffering. And I'm not saying this is everybody. Like, so, like, just to be clear, like, I'm not saying that I took my first cycle for this reason. I'm just saying that there's a lot of people now who I see doing this.
Yeah.
Right. And there's a reason why that.
The red pill, blue pill.
Yeah. It's like, and so my point is that you can do these things. You can go, hell, you can go to the bar and have a few shots if you want. You can go take, you know, a cycle. You can smoke weed before bed. You can do whatever you want. But the point is that make sure you're not doing it to neglect what's going on here.
Yeah.
Right? Because if you're doing that and you think that you're going to fix your life by coping with these substances, whether they are recreational drugs, performance enhancing drugs, you're going to be in for a rude awakening.
I will say this, everybody. I'm a very big supporter, and you guys probably have heard me on my other podcasts with THC and microdosing mushrooms.
Yeah.
I believe in microdosing mushrooms because the scientific effects behind it, which we will do a whole separate podcast on, but I had noticed my anxiety and depression start to dissipate when I started microdosing. I'm not going to get into big pharma. That's a whole nother series. That's a whole nother series we're going to get into, everybody. David's going to be here for plenty more episodes, but I noticed, marijuana I think is not really a drug, but it is in a way. It
Yeah.
does help people.
Yeah.
When I was getting seizures at the time from my injury, from being in law enforcement, right around that time, it became legal in Jersey. So I'd come over here and I started experimenting with smoking edibles, and my seizures went away. I got better. Everything was great. I'm not hating on it. I wish I could still do it, but I can't anymore. The thing is that I just noticed myself start to, that was my way out at the end of the night.
Yeah.
That was I had to smoke a blunt. I had
Just
to
to
take
get
an
to
edible
sleep
just to
and-
get to
yeah,
sleep.
yeah.
And then when I was feeling down, I'd smoke and I'd forget about everything. And then it was the best feeling. I've had some of my best memories doing that. But I just started going down a road where I'm like, yeah, this isn't the most extreme, but at the same time, I'm trying to numb certain things, my issues, my problems, trying to calm down. You're dating a toxic person that's not giving you what you want, and then you're fighting within your own self, and then you're smoking, which what I was doing. So pick your poison is definitely what I always say to you people. I will say this to anybody that's going through it, and remember, you guys will have David's information, you'll have my information in the description down below. Ask us questions, DM us, email us, whatever. If you guys want coaching from the best coach, email Dave. But the thing is that we need to make better approaches here with mental health, especially when it comes to people with PEDs, especially in the fitness industry, and just overall in general health. Like you're saying, man, is like a way out, and that was my way out. And this might be it, taking gear and getting to where you want to look. If you're still feeling empty on the inside, you're still going to feel empty even getting a pro card.
Amen. Yep.
And that's why we need to take precautions.
You're going to still feel empty inside. If you feel empty inside, there is no amount of external reward in life that's going to heal that.
Yeah.
No, there's nothing you can do. You can win president of the United States. You could marry the hottest girl on the face of the earth. There's nothing's going to heal that. The only person that can heal what I just said is you, yourself, internally. You have to do the hard fucking work of healing yourself. And that might sound like cliche or whatever, but it's true.
It is the most cliche thing.
It is the realest thing. Take it from two people that have lived this.
Yeah.
Who've lived this. Okay, that's why we're sitting here talking about this stuff. I didn't heal that stuff by building, my 20-inch arms. It's by sitting and talking like this with a therapist and journaling and doing real shit.
Taking the extra precautions. And again, my whole thing is like, I've wanted to do bodybuilding my whole life. Look great. I mean, then I got down there, why don't I want to do bodybuilding anymore? I just want to look good on the beach. Well, I want to be in shape. Well, I want to be healthy.
Yeah.
Now I'm like, maybe I want to do an Ironman. Maybe I want to do cycling. It's just like staying physically active is,
to be
for
clear,
my
you're talking
mental
about
health.
like cycling,
Not cycling.
because
gear.
we're
cycling
conversation we're
sorry.
having.
I want to start cycling, meaning biking, not cycling, cycle gear. That's great. But again, just like trying new things. I literally have a childhood friend that we just reconnected again after a couple years, and he was following my content on mental health, and he's going into some hard times right now where he's like, yeah, man, lost my job and I was doing day trading, but day trading was just giving me money and I'm not really happy doing that. Now I feel depressed. He's like, what do I do? This and that. I'm like, dude, find what makes you happy and makes you come alive as a person. I love traveling. All right. The fact I just got into the trucking industry. I like that I can travel doing trucking, but on top of that, I'm making my own content now. And that makes me happy, making content like this or just making blogging content. That's what makes me happy, is like showing people my day to day and doing stuff. The thing is, most cliche thing you'll ever hear is, do what you love. You'll never work a day in your life. And
Amen.
That is the most... You'll hear that maybe your entire life. And people that are under the age of 18, they're in high school still or in college, wherever you are going to hear that and say, yeah, whatever, I'm going to make money. Yeah. I am telling you right now, you can have millions of dollars and you still will not be happy in certain ways if you're not doing what you love. And that myself, I didn't learn that until a couple years ago. Yeah. And now just being in a position I'm at, because again, either way, we got to work. We got to work to do something that you are comfortable doing. And again, in our grandfather's generations, they did whatever to bring in the money to support their family, whether they liked it or not. And I remember, I don't know if you ever saw the interview with Jim Carrey when he said, his dad who wanted to become a professional, was it Trump? He was a musician.
I think he wanted to be a comedian.
No, his dad played an instrument, but he became an accountant.
Yes.
I forget what type of trombone or something.
Something
saxophone
like
player.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So like, Jim Carrey, like, he's a very open person. He tells a lot of people, like, with this mental health stuff, he's like, and then, 15 years later, my father lost his job and he lost his opportunity of doing the saxophone. He's like, and that's what motivated Jim Carrey to do what he wanted to do. He wanted to do what he loved. And that's, I always give these references and these, from these other people to let you guys know, like, there are people that are successful out there that have gone through this stuff and they try to explain it to you, but we're just never listening. We need to do what makes us happy.
It's because we as humans have to literally experience things ourselves to have those wake-up calls. And I'll give a quick one myself. Is when I was 20 years old, my cousin, who was 4 years younger than me, he woke up one morning and he said to his mom he couldn't see. And his mom was like, what do you mean? And so they took him to the hospital. By the time they got into the hospital, he was in a coma. And in the process of that transition from getting him from the house to the hospital, once he woke up from the coma, he was paraplegic, he was blind, deaf to a certain extent, and in a lot of ways, if you saw him now, you would, and this is 10 years later, you would basically, you would question if he was really even there at all, right? And so that was very, very hard for me to go through. But what that taught me at a young age was, dude, you can have it all taken away from you like that.
Yes.
And that kid did nothing wrong. He never smoked weed. He never drank alcohol. Nothing. He was a perfect kid.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, man, what is the purpose of going and living a life that I don't even care about? Like for what? I could wake up tomorrow. That could be me tomorrow. Yeah. That could be me. I'd be me driving home tonight. Like, so that at a very early age had that impact on me. And I think you bring up the Jim Carrey thing. It's like when you see somebody who took it, get life taken away from them so much like that, you are forever different because of that. When it's close to you like that.
Yeah.
And so I learned at a very young age, like playing it safe means nothing at all.
Yeah.
You are so much better off.
That's in business too, though.
That's everything. I've spent my whole 20s, I had so much less money than my friends around me and everything. Like I just bought my first nice car like recently, right? For the first time. It's like the amount of, I drove old cars that were not nice my whole life. The amount of gratitude I feel driving that car and pride, it's like, man, I feel so good doing that because it's like, I know what it felt like to have those other cars, right? I know it. And this is where it comes back to, as a man, building yourself and going through the trials and the tribulations and the failures and the heartbreaks.
They really
and
build you.
And building, they literally build you so that when you...
The struggle builds character.
Right. When you walk across that stage and get your IFBB Pro card after you lost it once or twice or whatever, that means so much more than if I went my first time and just was like, yep, here it is. Then now you're on the Olympia stage. It's like, well, that's not...
And that's
what everybody thinks they want.
That's a very
But that's not what it is. And they've literally done studies on this. They've shown the best thing you could do to have the most happiness and fulfillment in your life is to start out as low in society as possible without it being traumatizing to you, and to continually climb and climb and climb and climb and climb. It actually, if you hit the lottery and got that money, you would actually be less happy than you think you are, because you went from being what you are to just this uber wealthy person with not investing any work and putting the work into doing that. And so what it is that continual building, and this comes back to the PED conversation, is you think if you just blew up from that 20-year-old kid to what I am at 30 years old now, you think that's going to make you happy. No, I can tell you from experience, what's going to make you happy is when you're 30 or 28 or whatever, and you look back and you're like, I used to look like that at 20. Like, I've built this over 8, 9, 10 years. Yeah. It's the same thing's true with business.
Would you appreciate
music,
it? But that's
appreciate it more.
Would you appreciate, and this is what I've always said to younger kids, would you appreciate your physique if you could get here in a year versus 5 to 6 years?
Hell no.
You know what I mean? Yeah. Because it was so easy to obtain.
Yeah.
But when you look in the mirror 5, 10 years later, and you're like, holy fuck, I went from this to this. And again, I maintained this. I did what I had to do. I got through this. I know people that went through a divorce and they were overweight. Then they became shredded, and they were like, I did this. And that's the thing. Like, you need to find your purpose and what makes you happy. Otherwise, your mental health is never going to be there. And I'm glad that we did this episode because it's just, there's going to be a lot more talk on, PEDs, everybody, because I'm sure there's going to be questions. But I want everybody to know, if you're going through something, there's always light at the end of the tunnel. And I want you guys to know, if you are under 25 or at a certain age, or you're questioning taking PEDs, do your research, talk to a coach, talk to other people that are in your friend group that are influential, that are good for you, not people that are just telling you to take whatever. Do what is best for you. Try to make yourself happy in your own ways. And like I said, if you guys have any questions, you'll have both of our contact info. This has been a great, entertaining episode, everybody. I felt like this was 20 minutes long, but we've been doing this for almost 2 hours, and this is great. But I appreciate you coming, Dave. I can't wait till you come back. We're going to be doing a lot more stuff together, collaborating. I finally have somebody that's on a level where we can consistently work together, and I love that. So I'm out of here, everybody. I will talk to you guys.
Peace out.